My name is Emma. I'm 32 years old. I work as a chef in a local bakery. Life changed drastically for me after I lost my parents in a tragic accident a few years ago. Since then, I've lived alone, struggling with my emotions. Often, I would find myself sitting in my childhood home, lost in memories of my parents. Without them, my life felt hollow, devoid of love and comfort. Perhaps that's why I longed for someone who could fill the emptiness in my heart and bring peace to my restless soul. My days followed a monotonous routine until last year, when a new supplier, James, began working with us. He was 29 years old, charming, and incredibly polite. The first time we spoke, I noticed the honesty in his eyes and the warmth in his voice. Gradually, our conversations became more frequent, and I found myself drawn to him in ways I couldn't explain. One day, James invited me out for coffee. We met at a small local cafe, and that meeting changed everything. As he spoke about his life, I found myself mesmerized by his words, captivated by his stories. He wasn't just kind and respectful, there was something magnetic about his personality that pulled me closer. After that, our meetings became a regular occurrence. We would spend hours talking in the park or strolling along the beach, dreaming about life and sharing our thoughts. With every meeting, I felt myself falling deeper into a web of emotions I couldn't escape. James was becoming an integral part of my life, and I was losing myself in the warmth of his presence. But one day, everything changed. James invited me for coffee again, saying he had something important to share. I was eager to hear him out, but what he said shattered my world. He looked at me with a heavy heart and confessed, "Emma, there's something I need to tell you. Please don't misunderstand me, but I'm married." Those words hit me like a thunderbolt. He went on to explain that his relationship with his wife wasn't going well, that they were merely staying together out of obligation. I couldn't believe he had kept something so significant from me. My heart ached, torn between anger, disappointment, and the undeniable feelings I had developed for him. A few days later, I saw James at the market with a woman. She was tall, with golden blonde hair styled elegantly, and she wore a simple yet sophisticated outfit, a pair of blue jeans and a crisp white blouse. She exuded confidence, her gentle smile lighting up her face as they shopped together. James was carrying her bags, and they looked like the picture-perfect couple. My heart sank as I watched them from afar, feeling an indescribable weight in my chest. Quietly, I turned and walked away. For days, I tried to bury myself in work, hoping to distract my mind from the turmoil inside me. But James was all I could think about. Eventually, I decided I needed clarity, not just for myself but for both of us. I called James and asked him to meet me at the cafe. When we met, I gathered all my courage and said, "James, I think we need to end this. What we're doing isn't right." My voice trembled, but I tried to stay firm. James took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on mine, and said, "Emma, how can you say that? You mean everything to me. Being with you has brought meaning to my life." He continued, "My relationship with my wife is just a formality. But with you, I feel alive. I've never experienced this kind of happiness before." His words left me speechless, torn between my emotions and my conscience. That evening, I confided in my best friend, Sophia. I poured my heart out, sharing everything. My confusion, my feelings, and James's situation. Sophia listened patiently and then said something that struck a chord. Emma, don't let yourself fall for someone who's already committed, no matter how much you care for them. You deserve someone who's truly free to love you. The next few days were filled with inner conflict. I worked during the day, but my thoughts were constantly on James. When I tried to sleep at night, a battle raged in my mind. Amina's advice echoed in my ears, but James' smiling face, his words, and the feeling of his presence weakened my heart. Eventually, I convinced myself that ending this relationship was the best choice. I called James again to meet at the cafe, with the intention of speaking clearly and saying goodbye for good. But when I arrived at the cafe and saw James, my emotions took over. He was so incredibly handsome. I couldn't say what I had planned to say. Instead, my mind began thinking positively about him. I thought, how nice it was that he told me about his wife and marriage. He could have kept it a secret. We spent the time talking casually, and as I left, I decided to think more about my decision. I realized I needed to meet his wife to understand his personality better, so I could make a final and strong decision. The next day, I took leave from work under the pretense of feeling unwell and went to James's house. His home was simple yet welcoming. A woman opened the door, and she was nothing like the one I'd seen at the market. She had a gentle smile, wore modest clothing, and carried herself with grace. Her demeanor radiated warmth and humility. I introduced myself as a friend of James. She welcomed me in with respect, offered me tea, and started a pleasant conversation. As we talked, I expressed my desire to meet James's wife. She looked at me for a moment, her expression thoughtful, and then said, "Emma, I am James's wife." Her words hit me like a tidal wave. My heart sank, and I felt as though the ground beneath me had disappeared. I mumbled an apology, excused myself, and left. As I stepped out of their home, I felt a heaviness in my chest. My steps faltered, and I felt like a stranger to myself. I went straight to my childhood home, seeking solace in the memories of my parents. Their absence felt like a refuge as I lay in silence, letting the pain wash over me. That night was one of the longest of my life. Tears streamed down my face as I wrestled with my emotions. Finally, I allowed myself to cry until the weight in my heart felt lighter. I made a decision, a painful yet necessary one. I decided to stay away from James forever. I had learned that not everyone who looks perfect is actually perfect.